Oh, hey everyone. Well, after that whole winter going on and the coldness coming, I had to hold off on my reviews until now. And I know I did mention on my last review I should have been doing the crossover theory of Wonder Woman meets Darna, but I think this crossover theory, I think you have to wait for a while until I decided to make that theory. But as you can see, I trimmed my beard off, so now it's time for me to give it a good shave. But I'll tell you, feels good to be back. Back on my own show, huh? And of course, according to my Doctor Who watch, it's that time again. For another science fiction review here, because there's a certain science fiction movie that I have a bone to pick with. So, huh? Look like I need new batteries. Oh well. Sorry. Well, let's get to it. But first, before I'm going to get to the science fiction movie I'm going to review first, I got a few things to say. Remember in my Flash Gordon review? On my Flash Gordon review that I did my review of, I heard that somebody's going to be making a brand new Flash Gordon movie, and now I heard it's got canceled. I mean, they were planning to make a brand new, more down-to-earth, serious Flash Gordon. A brand new Flash Gordon movie. Flash! Oh, savior of the universe! But I heard that now the new Flash Gordon has been canceled. But one thing I did got is this drama series of Flash Gordon right here. Too bad it only lasted for like 22 episodes. To me, it's more dramatic and more dark than the usual Flash Gordon. I have to say, it was pretty good. I mean, it's not great, or spectacular, or bad, it's just pretty good. Too bad it didn't last long. But enough with Flash Gordon, and time for me to get to the one that I want to talk about the most. I got this this was my Christmas present that I wanted to see for so long, and I finally see it, and now I have the bone to pick with. And it is Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. But before I'm going to talk to you about the movie, first, one thing I would say. I mean, a lot of people were telling me that that this movie is nothing but a copycat of Star Wars or Star Trek, trying to get into their fame, and everybody always kept saying a lot of negative things about it. I mean, not many people liked it. They thought it was stupid. Well, just like on my review of John Carter, I got this to say. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know this was working. Bunch of tossers. Anyway, I love this movie. This movie was awesome. And people just don't see exactly what I see about it. Just like what I see on John Carter that others don't see. But before I talk about the movie, first, a little origin. Not many people know that Valerian was actually based in a French comic book. And here what it looks like. Valerian and Laureline. That's right. Valerian was actually based from a comic book. And the comic book started back in 1967, and it ended in 2010. That's right. This comic book series has been around for a long time. But one thing it's really surprising, I know some of you are going to be saying, wait a minute, Michael. Wait a minute, Michael. If it was made back then and ended in 2010, how come we never heard of it? Well, here's one good reason why none of you never heard of it. Simple. Parlez-vous français? Huh, what do you know? I got my own subtitles. That's right. The comic book, it started in Belgium, and of course most people in Belgium, they speak French. And of course, as you can see here, the comic book was in French first. It didn't get published in America until the late 90s. But the comic book was so popular that they decided to do something that I thought it was really interesting. And this is what they done. They done an animated series called Valerian and Laureline, aka Time Jam. And this show only, how many episodes they made in this animated series? They only made about 40 episodes in this. And I've watched the animated series here. They first started in French. They first started out in French until they dubbed it in America. And I kind of like the animated series. I say the animated series is a lot better. And here is the biggest shocker of all. Did you know that George Lucas was a fan of the comics? Yeah, that's right. The guy who made Star Wars was a huge fan of Valerian. So George Lucas, who took some, he did an homage to the Flash Gordon serials, and he also took some of the ideas from the Valerian comic books and to make his Star Wars. Don't believe me? Take a look at this. There are similarities between the comic book and the Star Wars movies. Like, for instance, the ship that Valerian and Laureline flew in, some of the design became the inspiration for the Millennium Falcon. Laureline dressing up as a slave, pretty much the same premise from Star Wars when Princess Leia was dressing up as a slave. And of course, when Valerian was trapped in a frozen carbon base, so did Han Solo. And they had a very scary evil bad guy who wears a helmet and a mask, just like Darth Vader. But as he removed the mask, he revealed his face all burnt, just like Darth Vader. And of course, these little aliens with short wings, they always bribed Valerian and Laureline to give them some information they needed. And they always tell them what they wanted. Those aliens was the inspiration for Watu on Phantom of the Empire.
You know, the guy who's a dealer. The public critic's no good out here. I need something more real.
So pretty much everything that you remember from Star Wars was most of the inspiration of Star Wars came from Valeria. And of course, here's one thing you should know. According to the comic books, this is how it all started. Valerian here, you see, his personality, he's kind of a mixture between, like, what if Doctor Who and James Bond had a baby. So, pretty much, he's kind of like a mixture between Doctor Who and James Bond. He's kind of flirty and likes to drink certain alcohol. He's kind of gung-ho. And also warns about time. Because in the story, he's a time-traveling ranger. Until one time he went to the 13th century in France and met this peasant girl named Laureline. And at first, Laureline thought he was a sorcerer until she finally realized he's from the future. So throughout the entire story, Laureline starts studying more about the future, which pretty much is history, and she was trained to be a ranger just like Valerian. And they go through a lot of lengths and heights in order to go through and try to get their job done. And of course, what they took from the animated series, from the comics, is one time something happened that their planet Earth is no longer exists, so now they're working as mercenaries in order to get paid, in order to get by. And that's on the animated series. But in the later comics, they worked with a crooked general who's from their planet. So this is pretty much Valerian and Laureline in a nutshell. Pretty interesting, huh? No. If you guys are going to think I'm going to do a crossover theory between Valerian and Star Wars, you're nuts. I already did the crossover theory of Star Trek and Star Wars. I don't think I'll be able to do another sci-fi crossover. Unless if it's, I mean, I would have done the crossover theory of Star Trek and Doctor Who, but they did a comic book of that one. And I'm dying to get the graphic novel of that one so I can do a good review of that. Because everybody knows, two of my favorite sci-fi franchise I always love more than anything is Star Trek and Doctor Who. My favorite saga is Deep Space Nine. My favorite Doctor, David Tennant, Matt Smith, and Tom Baker. But I think I'm starting to like this new Doctor, Julia Whitman. Peter Capaldi, he was not bad. But here's a little information you should know. The film director who directed this movie, and you'd be surprised on this one, the director who directed this movie, The Fifth Element. Now, I love The Fifth Element, and I know some of you are going to be thinking, when are I ever going to review The Fifth Element? Well, as soon as I get a DVD or Blu-ray of The Fifth Element, I can do a very decent review about it. But here's a little notion you should know. If any of you ever read the Valerian and Laureline comics, some of the design are very similar to the movie Fifth Element. And when the director who directed his science fiction future of The Fifth Element, one of his crew member asked him if he should do, I mean, since he was a huge fan of Valerian and Laureline, why can't he direct a Valerian movie? But of course he didn't have the special effects back then, but now he decided to make it. And don't get me started with the Fifth Element video game on PlayStation. I watched the reviews of this game. The game sucked. But enough about the history about the comics and the animated series. Let's get to the movie, shall we? Oh boy, do I have something to say about this one. The movie itself was really good. I was mesmerized by these mysterious aliens here. and kind of showed their side of the story, that their princess was trapped from the outside world, and they were wiped out almost to extinction, and now Valerian starts having visions about them. One thing I gotta say about this actor who plays Valerian, Dan DeHaan, that's his name, Dan DeHaan, he's a perfect role. I mean, he's perfect. I mean, a lot of people used to think that he's supposed to be more like Chris Pratt, who played Star Wars on Guardians of the Galaxy. Note to self: I should do a review of Guardians of the Galaxy, since I have the DVD to the second movie. Maybe I should do the review of Guardians of the Galaxy. Anyway, I mean, if you look at the comic book of Valerian, he wasn't no big beefcake strong guy. He was just a normal average guy, along with Laureline. Now, the actress, Cara Delevingne, that's her name, Cara Delevingne. If I get the name wrong, I'm sorry. But one thing about her is that her performance, it's okay. I mean, when it comes to models, they can't act. I mean, it's not like back in the 60s and 70s where former models starts acting and they turn out to be very, very good actors. It's not like the old days. Nowadays, most people who are models and they quit modeling in order to act, they're horrible. But to her, on the other hand, I say she's okay. She's not bad. Not good, but not bad. But what got my attention the most is having that famous singer, Rihanna, in this. In this movie, she's playing a shape-shifting, bubbling, blue ooze kind of alien named Bubbles, who can shapeshift to anybody. That pretty much shocked me. And here's those three winged little critters over there. And this little creature right here. One thing that's really interesting in this movie, and it's also in the comics, that these things, when the alien give these little critters a pearl, pearl starts coming out of his body while he's shaking. It's like he's crapping out a lot of pearls. And these creatures are part of these aliens' planet. Now, Laureline starts discovering their side of the story, and Valerian, he starts discovering their side as well. And the reason why he starts to know about them is because the soul spirit of their princess is inside Valerian's body. And spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen the movie, you have been warned that this British actor here, his name escapes me, but he plays the general. And at first Valerian was wondering why these unknown aliens put him in this blue gooey bubble to trap him and did not kill anybody else. They kidnapped him, but did not kill anybody else. Well, Valerian had gone through everything and discovered something. Turns out, this general, he done something very, very crooked. He wasn't a decent general at all. You want to know what he done? During the war between him and his alien enemies, he noticed that they were battling next to the planet where those aliens live. And what he done? He started a nuclear missile. It would wipe these aliens to extinction. He was creating genocide during the war. And what he's trying to do is trying to silence anybody who discovers them, including Valerian and Laureline. Ooh. Ooh, that guy. I would have killed him if I had the chance. If I ever met him in person, I'll give him what for. I know they're scientific instruments, not lasers, but I gotta have something. I mean, if I had a laser or a gun, I'll point it right in his face. Because everybody knows hunting species to extinction is illogical. Thank you, Mr. Spock. But not everybody are logical. Not everybody is logic. Especially in the world we live in. Oh, I'd like to punch that guy's face. I'll be like, hey, General, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Come here. Come here. Come here. That's just for trying to kill all the species to extinction. And he was setting these robots over here to kill Valerian and the remainings of those aliens to extinction, and and all the other soldiers who are now getting involved. But at least Valerian and Laureline, they finally helped them and got them out of here, and also stopped the robots. And of course the Colonel, he had that general arrested for treason. Well, more than treason, trying to create genocide to another species. Because I find that totally unacceptable. But of course, here's one thing I also discovered about this movie. You know the armor that Valerian and Laureline are wearing? Believe it or not, the armor they're wearing, they look a lot like the armor from this sci-fi video game I love, Mass Effect. I mean, think about it. I mean, if you ever watch the videos of Mass Effect and look at the armor of the character Shepard, they look very similar to Valerian and Laureline's armor. I'm not kidding. I mean, take a look. And you know, I mean, if you dig into the whole sci-fi franchise, especially into the center, you can find all sorts of science fiction stuff that pretty much inspired others to make their own. Heck, I'm making my own science fiction franchise. Of course, I want it to be a comic book. Of course, mine is about a autistic character who teams up with a Martian and a robot, and he goes through the galaxy trying to help aliens who are treated pretty bad by an evil alien who thinks he's better than anybody else. Yeah, I decided to make a science fiction autistic hero. And one thing about the character, he has no superpowers, he doesn't use lasers. He's a lot like Batman. No superpowers, just gizmos and gadgets. Without the bat costume, because in space, there's no need for secret identities. And my character teams up with the Martian girl and a robot. So if any of you find that that idea interesting, look me up. So, anyway, to me, this movie was a start. I mean, I do admit it's not all that spectacular, but it's really, really good. And this movie deserves some sequels. I mean, take some more from the comics and make more sequels out of it. Same way I said about John Carter. They should do more sequels out of this one. And if all of you disagree with me, I mean, if any of you disagree with me, you should call me by this number. 812-595-BITE ME. Actually, that's how it says. But if any of you like this review about Valerian, please leave a comment down below, hit like, and subscribe. And this is Multi-Voice Reviewer, aka Michael A. Grimm, telling to you all, see you next time. Come on, work. Ah, darn this thing. Oh well. Bye, folks.